radio telescope at Hartebeespoort in our very own Machali's Mountains that's used by NASA sometimes. How do you like that? It's so sensitive that cell phones and microwave ovens aren't allowed in that area. And the shuttle can't come in because there's no place for it to be parked safely. It doesn't have tracker, no gear lock, and no removable radio.
The Hartebeespoort Radio Astronomy Observatory is hidden away in an isolated valley in the Magaliesberg mountain range. Built in 1961 by NASA, the observatory was used back then in the space race. Nowadays, it's owned and run under the auspices of South Africa's National Research Foundation. Dr. Jonathan Quick is in charge of all instrumentation and computing at the observatory.
Well, part of the problem with astronomy is that you need to be able to interpret the signals that you're receiving. A radio wave comes in from space, but before we observe it, we actually convert it into an electrical signal. And in order to be able to maintain the continuity of the so-called calibration, you have to intimately understand how you're getting from one value to the other value. So if there's any black box in the wave which you cannot understand or be able to open up and see exactly how it's wired, you then lose that continuity of calibration that I was talking about.
The telescope is a massive 26-meter diameter dish with moving parts weighing in at 200 tons. Huge electric motors push this vast mass around, placing this dish exactly where it has to point. If a radio signal is coming in, this huge bulk of steel has to be positioned to within 0.002 of a degree, a matter of a few millimeters. And thanks to the power of modern processors, normal desktop computers make this kind of extreme precision possible. Sarah Buchner is doing her doctorate at the observatory.
It's very much a niche market with very specialized software, which must be high precision, accurate.
Proprietary software doesn't allow people to examine or alter the source code. As a result, scientists prefer open source software because they're free to lift the lid and make changes as they need to.
In order for an astronomer to trust some software, to trust a black box which someone gives you, you have to be able to understand what it's doing, which means that you have to be able to look at the source code.
It enables us to get into the guts of what's happening, to be able to tinker with it if it doesn't do what we want to do. The telescope itself is controlled through a specific hardware board for which no driver existed under Linux. So the whole driver interface through which we communicate is handwritten by myself.
NASA handed the center over to the CSIR in the mid-70s, but Hartebeespoort still plays a vital role in their explorations. In fact, the entire Mars rover project wouldn't have been possible without input from the team in this desolate valley south of the equator.
In order to get a probe to Mars, we need to know where Mars is going to be when the probe arrives there. We also need to know when to launch the probe, so we need to know which way the Earth is pointing at a particular time, in order to find the optimum time to launch the probe. And in order to do this, we need to know the exact rotation parameters of the Earth, how fast it's rotating, how that's changing.
When aiming at a planet that's 80 million kilometers away, the word exact takes on a whole new meaning.
Because of the distances to Mars, getting wrong the angle by a small amount can mean that you miss Mars completely.
This is where Hartebeespoort fits in. The observatory is used to determine the exact position of Earth in relation to other planets. Through this minute observation, scientists are also able to tell how fast and how far the surface of the Earth is shifting.
This is all related to the base of this telescope, which is moving at 2.5 centimeters a year in that direction, together with the whole African continental plate.
Around the world, astronomy is largely an underfunded endeavor. Because of this, astronomers have created a tight-knit community.
The telescope is fully controlled by open source software. The coordination is all done in terms of open source software, because obviously if you want to coordinate many observatories, each observatory needs to be 100% sure they're doing exactly the same thing. And the only way you can do that is by common software, and by common software that everybody is free to tinker with and make sure fits into your system.
One of the strengths of this observatory is we haven't got the biggest telescope in the world, or we're not that well-funded, well-resourced, but it's a small group of dedicated people who are trying to do clever things cheaply, and that's where open source fits in with us perfectly.
Our Geek of the Week is Thomas Fogwell of the CSIR. Thomas, thanks so much for joining us. You're at the CSIR.
That's correct.
The Council for Scientific and Industrial Research, is this?
Yeah, that's right.
What is it that you do there?
I'm a software developer. I design, architect, and develop software systems for clients. How I got involved in open source basically came about as a result of my career there, where I use a lot of open source tools to develop custom solutions for clients.
You mentioned government kind of embracing open source.
One of the projects I've been involved in recently is a project we did for the Department of Public Service Administration. It's basically an anti-corruption management information system, and it was done using only open source tools. And the idea is also to open source the code that we developed there to allow other governments to use it as well. Government, particularly Department of Science and Technology, are trying to foster an indigenous ICT industry that's self-sufficient and that can be globally competitive.
Okay.
And they see open source as a mechanism to doing that. The CSR has a project, a migration project, where the idea is to migrate as many of the desktop and servers to open source as possible. And the role of the CSR there is very much one of setting the example almost for government and for other companies in the country, basically proving that it can be done.
How do you see open source playing a role in education?
A lot of what I've learned about computers has been as a direct result of using open source. Open source tends to engage the user in ways that proprietary software doesn't. It allows you access to the source code, which means you can learn how the software works. You can learn from the best out there, basically, how to develop good software.
What do you think is the best thing you've ever achieved using open source?
Professionally, we've had a couple of good successes at the CSR, things like Digital Doorway and various others, where we are trying to further some of the goals of government, by promoting the adoption of ICT learning in the country.
Stay with us. Coming up next, we'll be looking at outer space, but not by going there, because that tends to be a bit disastrous, from the comfort of your own computers. We found out about a free audio mix package that will turn you into a sound engineer almost like this, and you might be interested to know that you can order your very own DVD set of this entire series or download each one for free from the website. Before we hit competition mode, I'm going to let Mr. Shuttleworth introduce you to some software that's sound software that's really sound, but it also sounds sound, and it's about sound, and it's sound. So I guess you could say it's sound.
Today we'll be doing it with Audacity. Audacity is free software that allows you to be a sound engineer. So you can take native audio formats, mix them, add effects, become a professional DJ, create music, design songs, a complete sound editing suite.
Audacity is compatible with a variety of sound formats, including WAV and, of course, Ogg Vorbis. There are tools for cutting and pasting, changing levels, and pitch and tone changing. It has filters like echo and noise removal, and support for third-party VST, LADSPAR, and Nyquist plugins. Multiple tracks are supported, and it's available on Windows, Linux, and Mac OS X.
So with Audacity, you have all of the free software tools you need to be a serious sound engineer.
Shutters, we have some bad news. We worked out that if you'd found out about XPlanet earlier, you wouldn't have had to spend all that money getting shipped off to space. And let's face it, the equivalent of a little Beetle with big engines on the back and being a bit nervous about all little portholes. Oh, Earth, oh, you, oh. You could have just done it all from the comfort of your own chair by switching your computer on and watching XPlanet.
While it's true that in a few decades almost everyone will be able to afford space travel, at this moment, if you want to reach the stars, your options are limited. Until now, that is. XPlanet is a piece of free open source software that puts you in your very own space shuttle. With XPlanet, you get to leave Earth. Most of the planets and stars in our solar system have been accurately mapped into XPlanet. They orbit in real time. They move the way real stars and planets actually move. Let's say you decide to look longingly down on Earth. XPlanet plugs into the free NASA satellite feed for weather charts, so you get to know what's cloudy and what's hot on this, our third rock from the sun. Best of all, XPlanet is free, so stop saving up for your own personal space shuttle and download XPlanet. We've got liftoff.
Open source is the gift that never stops giving. There's even more space stuff for you on the web. So write down these web addresses or just find them on our website, which is www.goopensource.org.
Yearning for a little more space, are you? XPlanet not enough for you? Well, it's Celestia to the rescue. Point your web shuttle at www.xplanet.com. www.shatters.net and download your very own free real space simulator. You get to experience our universe in 3